our Sea Sailor Sea Story theme is cruise, and we've got two very different cruisers, Rebecca Stirling and Jeannie Zortman. Rebecca, she's a legacy sailor. Her family sailed. She was born into it, and her story is very interesting. I read it, but then when I realized the little nuances, it blew me away. The other storyteller is Jeannie Zortman. I've helmed on boats with Jeannie, and she's such a solid person that knows what to do when things are dicey. She's one of those people that you can always count on. One of the other things that the NWSA does besides the Sea Sailor Sea Stories and our conference is every year we host an adventure sail day. And we want people across the nation, women across the nation, to participate in this by taking underserved girls out sailing. It is a life-changing thing for them. At the induction for the National Sailing Hall of Fame, there were people there that were well outside what would be considered the traditional sailor. It was always because someone was generous enough to invite them to come sailing. People don't just get on a boat by accident. We have to make it happen. So on August 12th of 2023, we will be having Adventure Sail Day. There's some places the date's not appropriate, but it's fun no matter what day you do it. And the reward is to take these girls that just have a wonderful time out, to give them an opportunity for really a life-changing turn to their lives. One of the follow-up things that we do for the adventure sail is we try to send girls that are interested in continuing and want to learn about sailing. If they apply, we make a big effort to send them to sailing school that they will build, so they'll build a knowledge base and be able to get on first as crew members and later as skippers. If you're interested in hosting an adventure sail, visit our website. And if you're interested in helping us fund the scholarships for adventure sail, you can do that on the website also. We'd appreciate your help. So our first storyteller tonight is Rebecca Stirling. She's a legacy sailor, and she is in Colorado right now, and she just finished writing and publishing a book. It's The Shell and the Octopus. I'm very, very eager to hear her story. Rebecca?
Thank you so much, Debbie Huntsman and Debbie Grimm, and to National Women's Sailing Association. I'm grateful to be here. And I'm also honored to be telling a story next to Jeannie, and really I'm looking forward to her story. I grew up on a sailboat with my dad. He built homes in Colorado and we'd live in them. And when he finished a few, he sold them and decided he wanted to go to Hong Kong and get a boat built. So he drug myself as an infant and my mom there. None of us, he had never sailed before. And he was inspired by a good friend of his who had just gone on a huge sailing adventure, who also had no idea how to sail when he started, but a man decided he wanted to go sailing and said, I'll build the boat and fund everything. I just need crew. He was one of my dad's best friends. He's a great family friend. He encouraged my dad to go on this journey, and therefore myself, I went on this journey. And he also encouraged me to write about sailing, and I'm so grateful to him. So we had a 32-foot boat built in Hong Kong in Pengchao in 1970 and 1971. Very basic boat, no electronics, no refrigeration, no hot water, nothing. My dad just liked it to be very simple. And so this is how I grew up, and I sailed on and off with my dad until I was about 24. No, sorry, 25. And he passed away in a car accident. This is right after the boat was built. He took us, we sailed to Seychelles. And so that was my favorite spot on the boom there on the sails. It's where I hung out. This is my dad using the sextant. He didn't believe in electronics, so we did everything completely naturally, and I learned how to navigate by the sextant when I was young, which was challenging. So this is a good place to start the story, I think. So he and I spent so much time on the boat together, and of course, when he passed away in a car accident, it was heartbreaking, and it took me a long time to get back to sailing and to our boat. And I realized how much I needed him in so many ways, as you can all imagine, with people that you love that pass. And also just as a captain of your boat, I felt really comfortable with everything out in the middle of the ocean, but whenever we got too close to shore, he would always take over and dock the boat and everything. So I went back a few years to the boat and was determined to sail the boat. I wanted it to be my lifestyle. And so this is my first trip without my father. And it just described some of the things I didn't know how to deal with and the things that came up. So, and then at the end, well, I'll tell you at the end of the story what happens there, but I'll start with the story here. And this is about this is about 2001 that this story takes place. And I'm around 30 then. After he died, I could still release the boat's lines from the dock. I could fire up the engine, back out of the slip, motor down the waterway to the Ballard docks outside of Seattle, and practice exiting the inlet as the water lowered us to sea level, and then return as the water fills the docks, pull her up into the slip and tie her off. I could do that. But the mast is still in storage. I did not have the courage to actually sail. Finally, we hire a crane with the workers from the shipyard to help us. My sister and I in our overalls, toiling away with electrical lines, sump pumps, and the diesel engine. We need help to step the mast. Now, finally equipped, we sail up to Lake Washington, call to the drawbridge to raise so we can pass under and sail amongst the other white triangles in the blue clouds floating through the sky, safely in the lake. But I have to get the boat, the engine, the mast, and the sails out to the Pacific Ocean. Can I do it without him? Can I do anything? Can I take care of my younger sisters still in school? Can I drop all that I've ever wanted for this boat? For my repressed need to sail? I am afraid to go alone. My boyfriend at the time is all in. He's had no sailing experience, but is an avid adventurer. Fast and light is his motto. He likes to find and make me leave food as that I stash in my backpack behind as we ski into the Alaskan mountains for days. And I cry. And Hobby comes, the young sailor who has transferred boats, no, yachts, 60-foot motor cruisers, luxurious, not like this boat, this sister of mine. She's 30 feet, simple, no refrigeration, no excess electrical, the torture chamber, Dad's friends call her, but she is all I know for the sea. So we sail out of the locks against the currents of the Puget Sound, round the point of Cape Flattery, just after Nea Bay, into position. My plan is to head 3 miles offshore, knowing the open ocean is safer, and it's what I know. But there's something different here. A ghostly fog settling heavy, steaming off the cohesive surface of the water, holding the power of the Pacific against the shore. And it's cold, bitter, wet, cold. I had only sailed in warm tropics or tepid waters just north of the equator. So I succumbed to their desire to stay close to land. The foredeck leaks into the cabin below. We patch it with tar. Fishing boat lights appear out of foggy nowhere, too close. The wind howls in the halyards and the ocean begins to chop with waves, current, and the closeness of land. On the radio, we hear a Coast Guard call for a distressed boat, her sails torn to shreds in the storm just south of us. I stay up both nights, sleeping a bit in the day. Then the autopilot breaks. By night, we pass the mirages of Bird Point, Sea Lion Rock, and the shifting currents of Cape Fallon, past Nehalem Bay, all in the eerie, bone-chilling gray. My boyfriend is on watch. Fast and light, he calls just before midnight. I lay dazed in my bunk, knowing she can't. She is not fast and light, but my fatigue gets me. Soon I wake shaking. The boat is keeled over, screeching a horrible, unnatural sound. I stand trembling violently and frozen in place. I speak to myself and breathe. I tell my mind to move my limbs and go above. The boom has swung, reaching downwind perpendicularly to the line of the boat, sideways against the huge cresting waves. The sail still full and also ripped, dragging into the water. The wind, waves, and keel at a torquing angle to each other, twisting her to screams. Javi turns on the mast light. It casts a stark white, glowing orb on the destruction in the black. I ask Javi to steer us into the wind, and we, now in wet weather gear and sea harnesses hooked to lifelines, walk on a sideways boat almost underwater up to the bow to try to pull the sail in. It's acting like a sea anchor, but the wrong way, pulling under at the nose so we cannot turn into the wind and the waves. As we pull the heavy wet out of the ocean and down from the mast, it rips more and more and piles up on the foredeck where we lash it down so it won't catch more wind or water. Sails now down, motor on, we, white as ghosts, too long awake, angle down the surf of the waves towards Tillamook Bay. Slow and sluggish, I say with as much of a smile as I can to Javi and my boyfriend. Just before dawn, we see the lights of a Coast Guard boat from Garibaldi. They call to see if we want an escort in. No, my stubborn mind thinks. I can do this myself without him, I think. But they are right here and I need help. So I answer the radio. Yacht Cattle Creek would greatly appreciate an escort in. Thank you. Over. It was a hell of a storm. Some were not as lucky as you. Follow us to port. Over. In San Francisco, I call my sister and we decide to sell the boat. The boat needs my dad as a captain, and I need to find a boat that I can cruise with now that he is gone.
Thank you, Rebecca.
How many years did you spend on the boat before you gave it up?
I went when I was an infant, and we lived on the boat for years until I needed to go to school. I ended up going to kindergarten in England, and I did a lot of homeschooling on the boat, and then we tried to continue sailing. By the time I was about 10, my mom decided that life was not for her and terrifying, so she decided to leave, and my dad and I stayed on together. He raised me, and I went back. Our base was in Colorado. He would go back and build more homes, so he would take a couple years off and I would go to school in Colorado. The biggest chunk was from infancy to about 10, and then we took a little break, and then we had another stint in Florida, Cuba, Jamaica, Cayman Islands when I was about 11 and 12. Then I just met him on some sails. He sailed to Hawaii and through Hawaii, and I met him there. By that time, he didn't want me on the boat because I was a teenager, and I started talking back and questioning. So I had to really work my way back. And when I was about 18, went on another major sail with him from Vanuatu up through Indonesia, through the Solomon Islands, Indonesia, and then for a few years, and then went back to college for a bit, and then went back and did my last sail with him when I was about 25. So it was on and off for 24 years.
And would you tell us the name of the book?
It's called The Shell and the Octopus.
How did the boat get its name?
Yeah, Cattle Creek is a very bizarre name for a boat, and
Yes.
it's named because there's a valley in the middle of Colorado called Cattle Creek, and that's where my dad built homes that he sold in order to finance the building of the boat and the sails.
Since he was a builder, did he ever consider building the boat himself?
No, he never did, and it's an interesting question. I never really thought about that. He and it's funny because he built this one boat and stuck with it. And I never realized how comfortable boats could actually be till I got on another boat. But no, he just had this one built, and this was the one that he loved.
Awesome. So, have you ever considered building a boat?
Not building, but I would absolutely love to own a boat. I help people with transporting boats and try to sail as much as I can. And I feel as though in order for me to own a boat, I want to live on the boat. I don't have a lot of pictures of our trip, unfortunately, but this is on the left. That's me and another boating family that we happen to spend a lot of time with in the Seychelles.
And that is not snow.
That is white sand, yes. And then this other one is in Greece. My dad sailed up the Red Sea through the Mediterranean. And that's my doll that smelled really moldy because it was on the boat all the time. And this is me during this trip that the story is talking about, when I finally decide that I'm ready to sail the boat without him.
Thanks, Rebecca. Our next storyteller is Jeannie Zortman, and Jeannie and I are acquainted. We have been shipmates. She's an adventurer. She sails for the absolute joy of it. You're a cross-country trucker, right?
I've done some trucking, yes.
Have you done ice trucking too?
Yes.
Yeah, so just that in itself is like, whoa. Jeannie is a bona fide badass.
I want to tell you, she said a 5-minute story, so I just want to tell you a subset of my trip to the Northwest Passage. And it's about this polar bear. And he was big and he was close. And it was a real thrill. And I hadn't expected to see this. So I went there to see the polar bears before they were extinct. I wanted to see the ice before it melted. I want to see the Inuit culture before it was completely erased, or hopefully it will never be erased. But this is the things I wanted to go see in person. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I got to this bear. I was asked to crew on this sailboat. It's a 50-foot steel ketch. There was a crew of 4, the captain and 2 young men from the Netherlands. They're all Dutch. They speak Dutch and English, fortunate for me. I flew to Iceland and then Ilulissat, Greenland, to get on this boat to go through the Northwest Passage. They wanted someone who had had ice experience. My ice experience came from crewing on a 50-foot steel boat, a schooner, through Patagonia to Antarctica, South Georgia, and over to Cape Town. And I learned a lot about ice on that ship, and they were excited to have me on board. Although I think they were disappointed at the end because we saw no ice. Our Northwest Passage experience, you can see there's these comments all the way. It kind of obscures the scale, but if you go to the next screen, it'll show you the middle of this picture. We sailed from, at the top is Beachy Island. We sailed down to Conyngham Bay, which is at the end of the yellow and the beginning of the dark purple. And in this little bay, it was recommended to me by some friends of mine, Jim Lee, who I'd met sailing at Lake Pleasant, He knew Ken Burton, who has sailed in the Northwest Passage for years and had taken a really good photographs of polar bears. He wrote a book called Canada's Arctic. And in this book, he mentions Conyngham Bay. And he says there's a beluga whale nursery there, and that nursery attracts polar bears. So there was good likelihood that we would see some there. There was no ice, so the bears usually follow the ice pack, but they were still hanging around on land. The captain asked me, he says, okay, I'd like to pull into a quiet bay where we can just anchor and relax for a few hours. And I quickly said, okay, how about we pull in here? Because there's a chance we could see bears. Well, he pulled in there, and the first thing we saw was a cruise ship. There's this cruise ships anchored in the bay, and there's these big fast Zodiacs zooming back and forth from the cruise ship to the little inlet where the beluga nursery was. These beluga whales have moved on also. They follow the ice. But I could see far, far away with my binoculars out. And I bought these expensive binoculars just because I didn't want to see a tiny white dot on the shore far, far away. You know, so I'm scanning, and they still look like tiny white dots. You know, and the bears are, some of them are sitting and they look like a white rock. There's a couple swimming far, far away. They look like a white log in the water. You know, and the boys, they have drones. So they get these drones out and they're flying around. And if you go to the next thing, he's flying around. He's taking some pictures of the boat from above. And he can take the drone over and get this picture of the bear, which as soon as the bear noticed the drone, he backed up, of course, and moved away. But he did get this one shot of this bear with a huge scar on his nose looking at him. I'm just like, okay, it's fun, but I'm looking at a bear on a little tiny phone from a drone. That's not a real experience, right? So I'm back on the boat. I'm gonna go have some lunch. I'm gonna eat some tuna fish sandwich. I was on a food war at the time, so I wasn't getting enough to eat. So I just went down, made another extra lunch. Then I came up and dried my sleeping bag on the boat. I'm reading this book about polar bears written by a guy I'd met in Ilulissat. He gave us this copy to have on the boat. It's his search for a polar bear in the Hudson Bay. And it's a fantastic story. And he's telling all about these crazy things he did trying to get a really good picture of a polar bear. And I'm sitting in here. I know I'm surrounded by polar bears, but I'm not going to get a picture anywhere close to the ones in these books. So again, I'm really disappointed. And so we go down below and the captain says, let's have our 4 o'clock bite. And then at 5 o'clock, we plan to sail. At 5 o'clock, well, maybe it was 5 minutes to 5. I go up on deck and this is what I see. This big white log, and it's like 100 feet from the back of the boat. Now this boat's way in the middle of the bay. I mean, there's a long ways from shore, and he's coming right toward us. He's got his nose up and he's sniffing us. And it's like, I'm thinking, hey, get my phone out of my pocket really quick and take a picture. And then I want video. I want pictures of him swimming. So I'm switching the phone to video, and then I'm filming the bear. I think I'm filming the bear, and I want to get some up and down shots. So I touch the video button and that stops it, and I can turn my photo horizontal and push the button again. And that's not what I actually ended up doing. I was filming when I wasn't, and I wasn't filming when I thought I was. So I have no really good photos or videos of this bear. Thankfully, the crew that did the drones, they have good cameras. And when the bear dove, I did get my binoculars, finally. I'm looking at this bear through the binoculars, and now all I see is his butt and this triangle of a tail as he dives down under the water and he pops up 100 feet back farther. And I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, the binoculars have now earned their keep. but I'm looking, and through the binoculars, of course, I don't have the photos, but through the binoculars, I can see it's just his face fills it. And his eyes are these beady black eyes. And he's got this black nose and his ears are huge and it's just all face. And then he's sticking his nose up really, really high and he's sniffing and looking back at this. I know that bear could have climbed up on the back of that boat if he'd have wanted to. But I was ecstatic. I had got to see my bear. We were getting ready to sail away. So the guys got their shots. We picked up the anchor. We headed out into this fearful Larson Sound where a couple other boats had got trapped by ice a week ago and are still at this point locked in Passley Bay trapped in the ice for 10 days while we're sailing on this calm, beautiful water that I came all the way to the Northwest Passage to see ice. But anyway, I was looking for the green flash. I never saw that either. The takeaway, I guess, was that I shouldn't have been so quick to give up on my bear. I should have just kept on looking, kept on watching. I could have watched him swim out there. I don't know. It was an incredible experience. I was glad I got to see that. So that's my story. I'm wearing the scarf that I wore and the sweater that I wore for 40 days and 40 nights as we went through the Northwest Passage and froze. We starved, but the bear was worth it. So anyway.
And Jeannie, the bear wasn't the only thing. You did see some ice and you did see some amazing wildlife.
We did.
And
We
you
did
got
see.
to have a violin on the shrouds or a bow. What
It is a much longer presentation to show the rest of the trip. Well, thank you for asking me to present, because this is a new part of this I'll have to do if I do write a book. And I am writing the book. It's just whether somebody will publish it or not. Thanks for letting me present, and I'll keep honing my skills and working on this end of it. So
it's really cool to hear someone that I actually know talk about such big adventures that and the success and just the taking it as it is. Not everything comes to you like you want it to. And I like the fact that you were sitting there reading a book when this bear came to you.
He came to me. He really came to see me. He said, "Don't you leave without seeing your bear."
Yeah, so that's sometimes we get gifts like that from sailing, and that's one of the reasons sailing is so cool, is because you just don't ever know what it's going to bring to you.
Exactly.
What's your next adventure?
My next adventure, I'm agreeing with Rebecca. I'm going to do a catamaran in the Abacos.
That's
We're
pretty
going to
cushy.
see manatees. We're going to have air conditioning and ice cubes and a bathroom in every cabin. It's going to be wonderful. So.
Margaritas,
Yes,
blender.
yes.
Yeah, there is something that's very nice about the catamarans are pretty nice, and they're so roomy. You can get away.
And I'll get to be the captain.
Awesome.
That was a big challenge too, because I'm right at that teenager stage where I'm not the best crew anymore, because I want to have input.
You've gotten bossy, huh?
Yes, I want to have some input and some say on things. So I'm right at that awkward stage where I'm not a very good crew anymore.
I like the way that you put it. You're a teenager. Jeannie she's from.
I was born in Oregon. I'm an Oregonian by birth.
And
so.
How long have you lived in? Well, you don't live here all the time.
I've been coming to Phoenix in the winter since 1997 or 98.
For a long time. So I've known you
Right.
about that. I've seen you
Right.
around, and then actually got to sail with you.
We got to race together out here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was
and so much for that. It was fun though. It was great fun.
I always learn something, right?
Well, so did I.
Yep. Yep.
So I need to give a plug. This is kind of a very, very, very cool thing that happened this weekend. The Leadership in Women's Sailing Award is presented by Boat US and the National Women's Sailing Association. And I went into the Sailing Hall of Fame, or the Sailing Hall of Fame induction, and there inside of the Sailing Museum, the National Sailing Museum, is a burgie from the National Women's Sailing Association and Doris Colgate's Leadership in Women's Sailing Award in one of the cases, which is it's so cool to see that women are being recognized for the work they're doing to bring sailing, to make sailing look more like the population of the United States. So this is a chance where I would like everyone in the audience to consider, put on your thinking caps and think of women who have really done amazing things to help sailing become more popular with women and to get women into roles that are not traditionally for women. So if you know someone in your yacht club or someone that just is an unsung hero, it can be a man, it can be a woman, it can be someone who's no longer with us, anyone that has done a lot to help women's sailing become more visible, considered nominating. The nominations will close in February, so get to work on it now. Nominate your sailing hero and let them be known for a shining star to help bring sailing to more people. And you can find more information at womenssailing.org. So thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Jeannie. The National Women's Sailing Association conference at Sail Newport on June 3rd. Newport is absolutely amazing. I've sailed a lot of different places, and Newport, it's the bomb. It's beautiful. It's got so many sailing attractions, brand new sailing museum, and get to play with the interactive exhibits. And that was great. There's tall ships there. Participants can probably go out for a day sail if they extend their stay a little bit or come early. It's a fabulous sailing community. It's called the Ocean State for a reason, and it's going to be fun. So mark your calendars now and like us on Facebook so that you'll know what's going on. It's June 3rd in Newport, Rhode Island.